Astrology is a good way to know about yourself, about your mentalities, and your desires that might not be very aware to your logical perspective. But if there was something that could make you not as aware as you can be about your subconscious patterns and natural desires, for an example. Because to be aware of one's natal chart, for an example, is to be aware of yourself. What if you've not developed yet an ability to relate yourself to the aspects of your natal chart, for an example? Or when people describe your sun sign or your moon sign, maybe you are not relating to the description or to certain examples that you might be receiving, and there is a reason for that. There are a lot of factors, though, that can lead to that event. Maybe you're just not relating with the person, communicating to you the description and the examples. Some signs, though, more naturally go into this mode of rejecting a description or any external classification of their attributes and categories. Mainly, Aries is the biggest example to be more defiant and against somebody describing and categorizing their nature, subconscious process, and natural desires. But in my opinion, I think in the biggest amount of cases is actually something else that can perturb your ability to be aware or relate to your natal chart or descriptions of your astrological alignments, aka your spiritual natures. And that thing is your upbringing, the way you were raised, the way you were supported or not, the way and the ways that you have to develop to survive, to be a part, to receive something, to feel safe, or just to go through your upbringing and the next couple of years and even decades, because some people are still living what we now call in these modern times they created coping mechanisms. Even in their 60s, in their 70s, they still reliving and rebirthing certain patterns, fears, or beliefs that they have since their upbringing. And in most cases, that's all subconscious machination, subconscious process, and nothing better than astrology, some good meditation, a good tarot reading perhaps, to be aware of those patterns and what routines mentally or physically are you stuck in that keeps to the renovation and rebirthing of those patterns. And you can always get those good astrology and tarot readings with me, Esoteric Cloud Surfer. Use my Instagram and my email in the description down below to know more about my services and to book readings and consultations. And now let me share with you why I think your upbringing is in most cases the biggest obstacle in the way of understanding or relating to astrology. Because astrology, or what we call astrology in this case, is just categorizing feelings, emotions, patterns, and realizing how each individual spirit does its own spirit things. And what are those spirit things? Creating, associating, traveling, expanding or contracting, creating awarenesses, creating minds. But we can't identify every single spirit because it's just too many little things, too many personal and interpersonal aspects that we cannot be aware and remember all of them. So, what people did and still do to this day is categorize, say, create a general framework so they can understand better and then relate to others, communicate to others better certain groups of spirits that you can identify them by certain patterns that they have in common with spirits of the same group. Let's say, for an example, Aries, cardinal fire, creating new feelings, new visions, new actions, and new expressions out of passion, aggression, motivation, frustration, and deep desires, being the external side of Mars and coming out of the first house. So, that description, for an example, is a general description for spirits that created their sun, their solar plexus, and they express themselves more into those natures in those ways. So, astrology is basically we taking a look at our spirit and spirits in general, and through general descriptions, understanding better and knowing more about how us as a spirit, as a creator, exist and create, associate, travel, etc. But through your upbringing, you can create awarenesses, minds, emotions, and feelings that might be different, opposing, or might be blinding you, or just making blurry vision or foggy vision about your own patterns and about your own ways to do what spirits do. So when you then receive a message or see astrology, a natal chart, for an example, about yourself, you might not be able to relate to your spiritual natures described by astrology because you have certain minds and awarenesses that were created to survive or to just cope, that now you think you are those things. You think those are your characteristics. You think those are your spiritual natures. But they were just external creations, external layers in order to protect yourself. And it happens because growing up as a child and a teenager and even a early adult, a young adult, you are still like a sponge absorbing a lot of things and going through a lot of things that are usually not your fault. You have no saying in certain financial decisions that your parents made. You have no saying in what school you went to and who you bullied or whoever bullied you. You had no choice when it comes to the teachers that you had and how they react to you. You had no choice about how your parents treated you, all right? There is always some responsibility. There is always an interaction, but it's not your fault and it was not your logical, conscious choice. So, in order to protect you, your true self, in order to protect your spirit from being damaged and losing the ability to travel or to create better imaginations or just to have a feeling of belonging, just to have a feeling of survivability, you created external machinations to adapt to the environment, and you were not using or paying so much attention to the machinations, to the mechanisms that you decided to create for yourself. Because also, in the end of the day, astrology helps us understand what examples you used in order to create your own system, because we live in the solar system and we use the solar system as an example to create our own system as spirits, non as humans, as spirits. Even before we create a mind, we use the already existing creations as an examples, and astrology lets you know what examples you used and in which way. For example, the sun is an example, the moon is an example, but in each way are you using sun? In each way are you expressing? Or in each way are you doing moon things? In each way are you attracting? What and how are you attracting? What type of emotions and feelings are you more able to create? Are you fixed emotionally? Are you creative? Are you mutable? Astrology is just characterizing and letting you know how you do things in your own way, in a general way, so you can relate it to yourself. But with coping mechanisms, you'll not be able to relate with those things because you are not using them and you are not paying attention to them. So some people that are even into astrology, into spirituality, they usually started not really getting into it and not really relating to it because they couldn't find the common ground between the descriptions about their sun sign or their moon sign or whatever, because they were still coming out of those coping mechanisms. They were destroying them or finding the right places for them. Because in the end of the day, you created coping mechanisms for a reason. And in most of cases, they are useful. That's why we create them. But as you grow stronger and more aware of yourself, and as you build better circumstances, that you can be yourself and create, attach, travel, for an example, in your own way, the necessity, the need for those coping mechanisms will decrease. So if you keep being in them, if you keep using them, you will be keeping yourself away to know yourself and be yourself at all time, at all stands. But they can still be useful. For example, there is a very good saying, do not throw your pearls to the swines. So even though you are into a specific field of knowledge, science, astrology, or whatever, not everybody will be able to process or receive your message or information. And some people just don't want to. So a good coping mechanism is, for an example, being able to relate in a surface level with people until you gain their trust, or you gain your, or they gain your trust, or until you feel comfortable and see value in exchanging your true self and your true expressions. It's also true that you should not downgrade your message just so you can relate with others, but also you're not going to be talking to your neighbors or people at the coffee shop about any deep source of information if they're not already into that source or field of thought as well. So a good coping mechanism is just learning how to bypass, associate in a more light and detached way with third house type things, environment, neighbors, teachers, people in your close surroundings that you are familiar with but don't have a deep bonded connection. To end the video, let's make the point clear. Your upbringing can make you not understand or relate to your astrology descriptions and natal chart. Why? Because astrology is a general representation of your true natures. Growing up, you might create certain coping mechanisms that are not your natures, and then you might hold on to them and you might think you are them and that those are your natures, but they were just an external source of safety or connection, for an example. So when you look at your true natures and descriptions, informations of your true natures, because you think your coping mechanisms are your true natures, you might not be able to relate, understand, and accept the descriptions of your true natures. So keep in mind, astrology, quote unquote, is never wrong. It's just the way, the description, the keywords that people might be using, or certain websites that you might not be able to relate with, or because of a certain upbringing, didn't have the time or the opportunity to see, use, and be your true natures that you chose to create when coming to this realm as an individual that then created a mind, a body, emotions, and feelings. So keep in mind to always be open to learn more about yourself and understand certain spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical aspects of yourself that are true. They exist, you are in that way, but perhaps you created something else and now you are using that something else to associate, to be safe, and to have some security, for an example. But your true self is always waiting to be explored and to be shown to yourself and to the world. So thank you very much for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. Believe in yourself and in all possibilities, and you be alright. See you next time.